This is It's Gonna Be Okay with Dr. Roseann, and today we're talking about failure to launch strategies. If you've listened to my previous episode, you know that there are many young adults in the United States and across the globe that are just not launching. And one of the biggest reasons is mental health. That tends to be really what gets kids stuck. Sometimes it's a known issue that you've been sort of band-aiding along, thinking those grades meant that mental health was okay. And then you try to launch them and it was an epic failure and now they're stuck. Sometimes you didn't really even understand how significant their issue was or how much support they were getting in high school. So let's talk about strategies. And if you're looking for more support, just join our Facebook group, drroseann.com/group. It's free. You got no excuse. Get your butt in there. So it's there as a way to talk about natural strategies, including behavioral support. So number one, let's get into these strategies. So you're going to identify the issue. That's the first thing you have to do. So your kid being stuck in the basement is not the issue. I know you're pissed. I know you wanted to get a job, go to college. You've done everything. Recently I was talking about somebody who came to me who, it was the fifth time they were trying to get him back to school. And each time it was just so ridiculous. It was just so ridiculous. It was like, one time there was a 0.7, another was a 1.7. And I don't know how many schools they had gone to. And they were trying to get them back for their fifth year, and they wanted to come to me 2 weeks before school started. And I said, sorry, I'm not going to take you unless he's taken the whole year off and he's going to make a real concerted effort to address his mental health. And the mom was like, he just needs to finish school. He's going to be very upset if he doesn't. And I was like, what makes you think like that he's going to be successful? He's not. He's shown himself very clearly. And I'm sharing this with you because it's a real clear example, but this happens all the time. And you're wasting a lot of money, but the biggest thing is you're going to crush their self-esteem, crush. And that becomes a hole that becomes really hard to get out of. So not impossible, but a lot longer. And, getting better and healing and mental health never is convenient, but we still have to do the work, right? So we have to identify the real issue. So you heard me say that mental health tends to be one of the biggest issues holding kids back. And I don't care if you're 30 years old and you're still a kid, right? If you're a failure to launch, right? And you're always your mama's baby, in a good way, right? But we have to figure out what's the real issue, right? So number one, that's what you got to do. Number two, understand what failure to launch is and how mental health are connected. So if there's a psychological barrier, anxiety, depression, executive functioning, pandas, OCD, those are probably some of the biggest ones that I see. Autism, I forgot about autism. And, you heard about some of the failures in the episode of the myths that occur. Many autistics get stuck, and it doesn't matter, if it's autism on its own or with depression or anxiety. Yes, it becomes harder once it's layered, but it's like an onion. You peel it back and you keep going and you move forward and you address each one. But you have to understand how mental health affects motivation, how the brain gets stuck. And it's once you understand that the brain is stuck, the behavior is stuck, you're going to not personalize it as much. And, you're not going to be so fear-based. You've got to be present. So one, learn about emerging adult development. So we sort of, boy, we expect a lot from our kids and a lot earlier. And, we have to understand that as kids emerge, we need to give them increased opportunities for independence. And every bit is a practice for when they are on their own. So one, they can, display, good coping skills and stress management, as well as they can be good decision makers when you're not around. And we have this habit of bubble wrapping our kids. And when they are emerging, if they don't have those opportunities to be successful, when you launch them, they literally are not going to be successful. And this rescue pattern, I know it comes from love. I know that you are really trying your best to support your kid and you don't know another way. And this really is a cautionary tale if people are listening and they have younger kids. I mean, the greatest mistake I see people make is not getting in there, getting to the root cause, checking under the hood, and just dealing with this in a way that is really deep. A little med on its own ain't going to do the work. You have to do behavioral work. You have to. That's why we have a program. We don't work, we don't just allow people to do neurofeedback. You've got to do some behavioral work. Really important. Okay. Parent self care. So when you have a kid who's stuck, if you're not putting that oxygen mask on, boy, you're going to be pissed off and irritated, especially when they're a young adult. Such an intolerance because it's like, well, he's 18, he's 23, she's 19. She should be doing it over and over and over, and you get caught in anger, right? Of course you're angry. It's not going to help the situation. You can share your anger, you can share your calm. It's up to you. Communication. So failure to launch, I never met a failure to launch where the communication wasn't broken down. And so you have to keep the door open. You can't get into this anger, this nagging. You just can't. You've got to find a way to connect. You're not going to fix this on your own. You're definitely going to need help, right? And expressing clear boundaries, right, and expectations are super, super important in all of this, right? So if you have an expectation and you just are keeping it inside and then you're angry at your kid, I'm not saying this doesn't happen every day at our center. Um, how is your kid going to know what to do, right? So this happens in a lot of relationships, love relationships, all kinds of relationships. Work, bosses are terrible at this and being clear. What are the boundaries? What do you expect? Make it clear. I know we work one-on-one with people, and you go to drroseann.com/help if you want to apply to work with us. And I'm not doing this forever. Heh, heh. Little surprise is going to be happening soon. So if you're really interested, don't keep waiting. Get your ass in gear. Get moving. I don't care if it's with me. Get moved. Start working with somebody because you need help. You already know that. And people call us every day and say, "Can you help me to even get my kid in here?" No, he or she is an adult. Get your own help. But you have to have clear expectations. You have to have clear boundaries. You can set them and walk away. And if they're not honoring them, you don't have to get into a friction. Don't accommodate. This makes me bananas. So when your kid is anxious, when they're distressed, of course you want to provide comfort. Comfort and relieving it for them are two different things. You get in a pattern of relieving your kids' anxiety, relieving their OCD, relieving their executive functioning issues. What's their brain's motivation to do anything else? They're going to be stuck. This is the hardest thing, right? Besides being angry, is not accommodating because they're going to be pissed at you. You're going to be doing something different. Be realistic, right? So your kid, in the same way that this mother somehow thought the fifth attempt without proper help that their kid was going to complete school. That's not realistic, right? So we can't wish for things to happen without putting some grease around it, okay? Make time to connect. I don't care how annoyed you are. It doesn't mean you're pacifying, right? Find things to do with them. I always try to make it where there's a positive, like cooking, exercise, getting them out, walking the dog, whatever it is. Find some healthy way to connect, even if it's in small moments, because this is how you get in with good communication. This is how the change happens. If you're stuck in the, fighting mode, nobody's going to break from that. Not unless you find a good therapist. You need to find a good therapist. You do. You're not going to do this on your own. You need a mediator. And there are licensed professionals that will help you. Probably need a family therapist. You can look for somebody who does work with failure to launch, but I would really look for somebody that, has experience with kids that are stuck developmentally. And your kid won't go, get your butt in there, right? Um, you want to work on motivation, and this is going to happen in small ways. This therapist is going to help you. It's not going to just turn on. I mean, especially if your kid's depressed, especially if your kid has a history of this. Some people need more external motivators, and some people have internal motivators. If your kid has always needed external motivators, it's not going to just magically change. So finding ways to facilitate motivation is important, and there's no easy way around that. That's individual, but good boundaries helps with that, and clear expectations. I like little signed contracts. Neurofeedback. Many people come in and work with us, and my other tip was a short-term intensive, and they do short-term intensives with us because you need some intensity around this. A once a week counseling session isn't going to help, and probably you've already been doing that. There's no magic pill. And neurofeedback helps to self regulate the brain, becomes a platform for the learning to work. It doesn't matter if it's failure to launch or ADHD, the basis of the mental health problem is ADHD or autism or anxiety. Social anxiety is a big one that I see, or OCD. You've got to regulate that brain, get that distress, that dysfunction, whether it's under regulation or over regulation. You got to get it working before you try to do all this big work, because your kid is stuck. That's what failure to launch is all about. And you are probably stuck. You're probably irritated and frustrated, and that's okay. All emotions are good until that's the only emotion you are showing and you're living in it, right? So we can have moments of irritation, we can have moments of sadness, but we can't stay there. And so we have to take care of ourselves first, but we also have to help support our child's brain in regulating. Then we start layering in the work. And failure to launch kids need a targeted, strategic, slow approach. Like most healing isn't a light switch, but this is something that's been going on a long time. You really need to make the connection between that failure to launch and the mental health issue that's behind it. There's always a mental health issue behind it. And you've got to do really good behavioral and family work. So I hope this was enlightening to you. Don't feel stuck. Even if your child is stuck, go and get your own help. I promise you it will help.